Protein and meat production is often at the center of the discussion when we talk about sustainable eating. Let's explore why that is and what trends we're seeing in protein consumption, as well as the health and environmental impacts of those trends. In recent decades, we've seen some dietary trends move across many countries around the globe. Beginning in the 1960s, many people, especially in higher income countries, began to turn their backs on dietary fat. Reducing fat in our diets became an overarching goal promoted by physicians and government bodies around the world. The food industry responded by giving us thousands of low-fat and fat-free products, but they often added a lot of sugar to make those products taste better by replacing the taste that was lost when the fat was removed. This led to a significant increase in the amount of sugar we were consuming. And in the early 2000s, we saw a shift towards people trying to consume diets that were low in carbohydrates, especially sugar. Fats, carbohydrates, and proteins are the three macronutrients that make up the majority of the food we eat. For more background on that, you can visit our course called Stanford Introduction to Food and Health. But for now, let's continue with this story. Because dietary protein is the only macronutrient that hasn't historically been labeled as a food to be avoided or eliminated, some researchers suggest that protein was left under a kind of halo. It was the only one of the three macronutrients that hadn't been targeted, so we assumed it was good for us in any amount. Of course, it's important for our health to get enough protein and the amino acids that make up protein in the correct proportions. And in some parts of the world, especially in low-income countries, some people do still suffer from protein malnutrition. Because of this, public health agencies have rightly emphasized the importance of protein in a healthful diet. The problem is that for an increasingly large proportion of the global population, people have misunderstood this message to mean that protein, especially animal protein, is good for us in any amount, and the more the better. Globally, meat consumption has been on the rise for decades. In reality, diets that are high in meat and other animal proteins go against health recommendations in most parts of the world. Instead of eating large amounts of meat and other animal proteins, we are being urged to increase the plant-based proteins in our diet. Plant-based proteins like beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds come with a lot of other nutrients, fiber, for example, that are critical for our health. And compared with meat production, producing plant-based proteins is far easier on our planet. A recent systematic review led by Dr. Christopher Gardner at Stanford University led to recommendations for a shift that would optimize our health and the health of our planet. Dr. Gardner and his colleagues found that if Americans could reduce their total protein intake by 25% and shift just 25% of their current protein intake from animal to plant-based sources, it would allow for our recommended protein intake to intersect with significant improvements in environmental health. We could achieve this by replacing the meat with plant-based protein in just 5 out of the 21 meals many people eat each week. Or we could just consume a little bit less, choose a smaller piece of chicken, or skip the second slice of meat on your sandwich. You probably won't even notice a difference, but the planet will. So what are the take-home messages? In parts of the world where people have enough food to meet their daily caloric needs, most of us are eating too much protein. And the proportion of that protein that comes from animals is higher than what we need and what the earth needs to stay healthy.